Hello everyone, and welcome to this question and answer video for Arwic Studios. This video was recorded on June 3rd, 2019. My name is Rocky Ben. I am the project lead for Arwic Studios. Thank you everyone for your continued support of the efforts we are trying to accomplish. I apologize that this is a recorded video instead of being live streamed. The reason for this change is mainly due to time constraints that I currently have, and this is the easiest way for me to answer all the questions you have posted. Thank you again for everyone that has asked a question on our Facebook page, our Patreon page, through private messaging, and our Discord server. While we did receive a lot of similar questions, we have chosen to answer only one form of the same question that is asked. Additionally, we have separated the questions into specific groups and will be answering them accordingly to them. So, without any more wait, let's begin. The groups of questions that we will answer today are for our Warner Brothers efforts, the current gameplay development, additional features, the demo, and I will be starting in that order respectively. To start with our Warner Brothers efforts, the first question that's been asked is, when will you be able to discuss the negotiation with Warner Brothers, and does the NDA end? The NDA that has been lifted for a while now. There are areas that we can discuss, but we have decided against openly discussing some of those issues, as they could potentially hurt our efforts for continued discussions with Warner Brothers. If you would like to know more information, or you have very specific questions that you would like to ask, please message me directly and I will answer whatever questions that I can. The next question that is asked is, when do you anticipating opening discussions with Warner Brothers again in the future? At this time, we cannot faithfully answer this question. There is no time frame to continue discussions because Warner Brothers has decided to end all communications on this topic. Until they are willing to talk about things and answer questions that we have asked repeatedly, we cannot provide an answer for this question. The next question that's asked is, can you elaborate on the litigation involving Asheron's Call, or is that under wraps? Well, we do know this. Most of us have seen the articles concerning the former higher-ups of Warner Brothers and additional litigations that the company can keep tight-lipped on. So far, when it comes to Asheron's Call, there are only a couple litigations or a couple issues that Warner Brothers is keeping secret on, and will not answer the questions that we've asked for that. So until they're willing to discuss openly what's going on with AC, there's not much we can really do. The next question that is asked is, your original purpose for doing any of this was to save Asheron's Call. Has that purpose changed? Why are you not working with the emulators? And are there any additional efforts you are trying to participate in to help save Asheron's Call? To answer this, the core principle of what we are trying to do is and will always be to save Asheron's Call. This will never change. The reason we're not working with the emulator team currently is due to the legality of the efforts. We've already seen Warner Bros. Openly issue cease and desist letters to members of the community that we know about. For us, creating a spiritual successor, or at least a demo to try and find funding for the full game, is our only avenue. Now to the question of additional efforts. I know I personally have been involved in discussions with other people. Myself and a few others are working with a legal expert in determining whether or not an online museum for dead MMOs is a possibility. While we have been able to determine that this can be accomplished, we are trying to find a way to potentially fund this project. One of the names we have come up with for this effort is the Museum for Online Digital Entertainment Media, or MODEM for short. Kind of ironic. If anyone is wanting more information on this, I'm willing to talk on this privately, because there are a lot of working parts that have to go into this project for it to become legally viable. The next question that's asked is, we have seen the return of another dead MMO called City of Heroes and their rogue servers. Why aren't you trying to help the AC servers? Again, one word: legality. Creating an emulator without the express written and publicly displayed permission from the original owners of the intellectual property is illegal. The U.S. Copyright Office has openly stated as such. However, in October 2018, the provision for museums to host this type of information is, if possible, if granted permission by the original owners. Once the legality of the issue can be addressed and made whole, then we could work towards this effort. Until then, we're going to be bullish on our stance, and we are going to try to do whatever we can to get Warner Brothers to the table. Our next group of questions is on our game development efforts. First question we have is, the game you're working on is a single player game, correct? If so, will it have branching storylines or be more linear? The game we are wanting to build will start out as a single player, third-person RPG. Close examples to this would be games like The Witcher, Dark Souls, Darksiders, Kingdom of Amalur, or even Dragon's Dogma. Our intent is to create a multi-game story that spans across the land system that has been created to tell a complete story of the main character and the world they are on. In addition to the story itself, we are wanting to create what we call a social system based on how the player chooses to react to the patrons of the world. The better socially you become, the more likely the citizens will help you. And in return, the worse socially you become, the more likely the citizens will work actively against you. So while we are crafting a story that may seem linear, we are trying to give the players the ability to shape the story to their style. Why a single player game? Why not an MMO to start with? The original developers of AC created an MMO first. Why not do what they were able to do? For us, it's about branding and marketing. A single player game is not only cheaper to develop, but it gives us an opportunity to appeal to both the potential community and a potential publisher. The reason that we are not starting with an MMO right from the start is mainly due to the cost of creating a large project. While the original devs of AC were able to create and craft a world that all of us were able to call home, at the time of creation, Asheron's Call and the MMO genre was still in its infancy. Creating an MMO in the late 90s, early 2000s was the wild west of gaming at the time for online games, and had its own obstacles and opportunities that were unique to that time period. Today, the MMO playing field is much larger, especially globally. A lot of MMOs that have been developed and released within the last decade experience a struggle to survive. The corporate model for MMOs has evolved. The gaming taste of the communities evolved have blossomed. To create an MMO today is a much greater risk than when it was when AC was released. Our plan is to release an intellectual property that more than just an MMO fan can relate to. The story we are trying to tell fits in both the MMO genre as well as a standard RPG. We want to try and cater to not only those that follow our efforts, but bring in new players to the story that normally would have never thought of experiencing it before. Once the first game is released, our first effort, we will see how it competes on the market, and if it does better than we hope for, our intent will be to create a 5-game story arc that is interconnected with the other games. The interconnectivity will allow character transference from one game to the next, allowing players to continue the story without having to recreate the character. Once all 5 games have been created, we will begin the process of creating a potential MMO based on the outcome of the players' choices throughout the 5 games. Can you elaborate on 3D animation, concept art design, and environmental design as they pertain to what you need? For example, and not limited to, does the animator have to have the asset models as well? Does the concept artist have to come up with the idea, or are they putting an image to someone else's description? We are looking for a 3D animator / modeler. We want this individual to be able to create the assets they have in mind, along with creating assets we have in mind as well. We also need them to have an open imagination when creating these assets, so they can create assets they think are relevant to what we're trying to do. For the concept artists, we will be doing both. We have a very specific set of information that we need them to craft, and at the same time, as an artist, they would need to put their own flair on the art. For the environmental design, it's going to be purely making the current demo pretty or polished, however you want to describe it. We need to have the demo feel as though it's just a regular game, so that we can be able to present it to potential publishers and investors to get the full game created and funded. The next question I have is there an idea how the skill system will be done? Our intent is to create a skill system identical to AC, with the potential of adding some of the elements from within AC2. Is the storyline already fully noted down, or is the group working on it as it grows? If so, will fans be able to send in ideas like the eater mobs from AC, for example? We have the base skeleton of the story created. We have point A and point Z, but until we can secure the funding that we need, we have to wait to create points B through Y. For the most part, we know the story we want to tell. As for the fans' input, we will always take that into consideration. For the demo itself, we are giving our patron supporters the ability to name several of the NPCs. Once the demo is crafted, we have additional ideas on how we want the community to interact with that creation, including potential creatures and asset creations. What is your plans for PvP? If and when we get to an MMO part in this long journey, PvP is currently a no. Once we reach to that point of the MMO, PvP will be an essential mainstay. For a single player game, it's hard to have PvP when you don't have others interacting with you in that game. Can we get a taste of what the inventory will look and feel like? Will it be a UI you can move and edit, or will it be will it be set like original AC? Could it be possible to set a toggle mode for UI? Either you have it preset or have the option to fully edit it. Currently, you can see a slight taste of what we already have in the demos on our YouTube. For the demo, we're not expecting the UI to be movable. Same with the single player games, but for the MMO, that's a completely different item. Can we expect similar Asheron Call sounds? Like people talking in towns, animals, the rain? Yes, we'll be borrowing some ideas from AC. Of course, we plan on making the cities and towns much a part of the living environment and ambience, just like our characters and weapon effects are apparent in the world. Will the game be open world? Can you tell us about classes and skills? Open world? Yes. Classes? No. We're returning to the custom character design that Asheron's Call is known for. The classes system is a fundamental part of our design construct, and is a core mechanic of AC that needs to be recreated. Without the classless system, it wouldn't be any better to differentiate our efforts from any other RPG on the market. So our next section of questions is on future editions and items within those editions. Like I said previously, our efforts will culminate in a 5-game story arc with the potential of an MMO. The way we want it to work is that the systems in place in the 5-game system, or a 5-game story arc, will allow you to transfer the character from one game to the next. It doesn't matter which game you transfer to from one to the next, as they'll essentially all be the same game, just different parts of the story. Along with that, items will be transferred. if we get to a point where an MMO is actually able to be created, we plan on taking the items and the character information from the first 5 games and culminate that into the beginning storyline of the MMO. Legacy items will be created for those players from the items that they have from the first 5 games. Those legacy items will be just as powerful as any starting weapon, as it will be a few years after the games take place. But you'll be able to take your character or parts of your character from the first 5 games and see them in active stance in the MMO. That's our intent. If we're capable of getting there, we will. Any additional features that are meant for the MMO release is still up in the air. While we have a lot of questions about PvP, we can tell you this. If we can create an MMO, slide casting is something we will be planning on adding as a feature. Yes, slide casting would return. To discuss any features outside of this is jumping the shark for us, and we don't want to promise anything more than what we've already stated. So our last section is the demo itself. Expecting an alpha or gameplay in 2 years, is this a reasonable timescale considering UE4 is being used, or is it still way early to do all the artwork that's needed to be done? To us, it all depends on funding for the main game. For the demo, as soon as we can give you something to play with, our patron supporters will be the first to get their hands on it, with exception to a select few individuals who will be invited as alpha testers for the demo. Because, we have bugs that we need to make sure are not there to be able to present it to potential publishers and investors. In regards to a released product, since we're starting with a single player game, early access is not an option we'll be allowing outside of some invited alpha testers and specified Patreon support tiers that we've already stated. How closely will this new game resemble old Asheron's Call? Is there any similarity in the skills and levels, or is it just a vague spiritual successor? Since this game will be focused on a new world, there will be a lot of elements that will be AC-esque. A lot of assets and overall gameplay will have that AC feel, but there will be a lot of modern industry standards that will be implemented to update what AC could feel like in today's market. As for the skills, we'll be using a system almost verbatim to AC, with, of course, a reimagining of the skills as they were when AC shut down. And yes, we are planning for a magic system very similar to AC, with a spell economy and spell creation system as AC had when it was first released. Could we see some sample combat with different weapons? Maybe a caster, archer, and a melee? The demo will have a combat system that is based off of melee, with a couple different weapon choices for you to use. We may or may not add a range and or melee combat to this demo, but at this time we have no plans for it. What is the end goal? To replicate AC, or to create a game built off of Asheron's Call's mechanics? The end goal is to create a new intellectual property that is very reminiscent of Asheron's Call, utilizing a lot of features AC is known for, while updating those mechanics to current market standards. Our intent is to get to a point where we have an offering that allows us to acquire the AC IP, so that we can merge it into our IP as a single property with AC and Dareth at the helm. We have only discussed this as something we would like to have, but we would love to create an MMO that people from all over the world are playing, and then create an expansion for that MMO that sees the players returning to Dareth with their characters, or have the potential to start in Dareth and be able to explore portal space and everything in between. Again, this is what we're hoping to accomplish, but we'll see how far we can get. Is there anything like original AC? As far as using exploits such as game-breaking casting animations in PvP. For the MMO, we'll be taking a very strict policy against anything that breaks the game. However, there are some bugs and exploits that we enjoy and we want to be staples. For the single player game, however, all of the AC exploits and bugs are game breakers and we won't be allowing them. This may include slide casting at this time. So unfortunately, that's all the questions that we currently have right now. We are going to be releasing a version of the demo very soon for our Patreon supporters to play with. There may or may not be combat, but we want our Patreon supporters and those of you who wish to support us to have a feel of the level itself for the demo and for you to see firsthand instead of in videos. So when we announce that, we will be announcing that on our Patreon page first. So please visit us at patreon.com/Arwic Studios. Thank you again for asking the questions that you asked. Thank you again for supporting us in any and all the efforts that we are trying to accomplish. We hope we can provide you the experience that AC was in a new and refreshing story. We hope we can be true to what AC is and was. And we hope that we can be proud of the systems and the game that we create for you, our community, and our potential supporters. Again, my name is Rocky, and I thank you all for watching this video. Have a wonderful afternoon.